This is a video on how to fall asleep using non-doing. The first thing I want to say here is that we don't know how we fall asleep. For anyone who's found themselves lying in bed late at night, worried why they're not asleep yet, has noticed that there's nothing you can really do to fall asleep. Normally what happens is that we lie down, we trust that sleep will happen, and then at some point we transition from awake to not awake. And assuming there's no biological imperative like caffeine, insomnia seems to happen because we're still doing awake in some way, and that prevents us from falling into sleep. So we're self-interfering in some way. This normally looks like rumination, so thinking about the day we just had, planning tomorrow, worrying about the thing, whatever it might be, and then we recognize, oh, I'm thinking about the day, that's keeping me awake, I want to be asleep, so what do I do now? And this is where we get stuck. So often what happens here is that we'll then try to fall asleep. We'll get frustrated. We'll try different tactics. We'll make it a task to fall asleep, and that just of course keeps us awake. So the harder you try to fall asleep, the more awake you'll find yourself, and the more stuck you'll get. And so eventually you wear out, and then you fall asleep without knowing how. So the reason this is, I think, is that normally in day-to-day consciousness we are doing awake. I'm right now asserting a kind of awake state, and I carry on doing that in bed when I think about the day. The rumination is still doing awake. When I switch over to the trying to sleep, that's exactly the same kind of thing. I'm still trying to do something. As far as my brain is concerned, I think any kind of doing of that way is just asserting being awake, and that interferes with sleep. So the way out of this is to apply non-doing. So rather than trying to sleep, what we want to do is cease doing the awake state. Is to stop doing the thing that's keeping us awake. And then trust that something else that knows more than we do will take over and take us into sleep without us knowing how it happened. It happens of itself, the way it normally does when you just fall asleep without having insomnia. So how do we do this? The key here is to not try to. Any kind of trying, any kind of doing is falling into that same doing trap that will keep us awake. So instead, the trick is to notice that it's going on and to choose not to engage with it in some way. So first of all, set an intention. I want to sleep. So that's very clear in your mind. And then notice whenever you're doing something that is asserting an awake state, and choose not to engage with it. Choose not to give it more energy. Just notice it going, oh, I'm doing that. I want to sleep. I'm doing that thing again. I want to sleep. And in doing this, you escape the trap of doing anything at all. And you can unhook from whatever the process is that's keeping you awake and hand over control to the thing that knows what it's doing in this point. You stop the self-interference. So every night when I go to bed now, I catch myself for a few minutes doing the planning thing. Then I go, okay, I'm doing that thing again. I want to sleep. I'm going to choose to do nothing here. Or choose not to do anything at all, rather. And just trust that something else can take me away. So I hope that's useful, and see you next time.